Welcome to Breeze Time with Kathy. Before we start, I'd like to make a few announcements. The first announcement is the worship service, which is shown on Channel 22, has moved from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sundays. It's going to be re-aired again at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays. There's several reasons for the move. One is that residents have told me that oftentimes the meals get delivered during my sermon and they'd rather watch my sermon, and so asked me to move it. Another thing is we've had some technical difficulties, and I hope that we can avoid that by changing the time. Catholic Mass, which was previously shown at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, will move to 11 a.m. on Wednesday. So Catholic Mass, 11 a.m. on Channel 22 on Wednesdays. Starting on September 6th, we'll have live worship services again. They'll be in the auditorium at 11 a.m. I won't be able to bring in our pianist yet, but we will be able to at least socially distance in the auditorium and to have worship service when we can gather together. Now, I know that's not convenient for all of you, so I'm going to continue to have video worship services on Channel 22 at 1 p.m. on Sunday and Wednesday. There's something new, too. I'm going to start a Bible study. The Bible study will be a weekly Bible study. It will start on Wednesday the 2nd. It'll be live in the auditorium. I will lead it, and it'll be at 10 a.m. Now, all these announcements, you'll see them again. They'll be in the calendar, they'll be on the dailies, and they should also be on slides on Channel 22. But I just wanted to let you know about these changes. Well, I hope and pray all of you are doing well, and I just wanted to share a few thoughts. I thought, when I got married to my second husband, Chuck, I owned a home. Thing is, the house had been repossessed, and the backyard was, and of course, with that long repossession, when I bought it, there wasn't stick one anywhere. Grass, yes. Lawn, any kind of landscaping, no. So we had a nice little bay window that looked out of the breakfast nook by the kitchen. And I was looking out there one day at my bare backyard, and I said, I wish that I could see something bloom when I looked through that window. Wouldn't that be nice, Chuck? Bloom? Oh, yeah. Well, this was like in January or something in Louisiana. Well, he said, I'll do some planting. Well, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Chuck went and pulled out the Jackson Perkins catalog. He started looking up and he got the Jackson Perkins catalog and other catalogs, and all of a sudden, boom, we're getting all this kind of stuff that, he's ordering things, and then he goes and he said, well, it's time, and he gets 50 rose bushes. I said, darling, 50 rose bushes. Well, I thought we've got that 50-foot of fence running there, and it's so bare. These are hedge roses, and I think they'll look nice there. I said, okay. Well, they arrived, and they're all bare-rooted. That's the way they come from the Jackson Perkins catalog, I guess. And I said, wow. So anyway, Chuck went ahead, and he said, so we've got to go ahead and plant them. We've got to get them in the ground, because you see it gets warm early in Louisiana, and we had to get them in before planting season. So he went and he bought he went and rented a tiller. That's what he rented. He rented one of these power tillers. And he gets out there and he digs up the whole 50 feet along the fence on the side yard as I look out. There it is. And he digs all that up, and he tells you, now I want you to dig holes. Go ahead and dig. Well, actually, I think it was 25 rose bushes, because we planted them 2 feet apart. And I said, I want you to go and dig 25 holes so we can come back and plant the bushes. So he said the ground ought to be easy because I've already tilled it up. I just want you to make the holes. So, I'm going ahead and I'm digging my holes. You don't dig them so deep, he told me, and I'm doing what I'm told to do, and I'm going from one hole to the other, digging it, and I'm hearing the tiller going off, and I look, and he's tilling up a little bit of area over by the patio, and he said, I thought we'd plant a few plants here too. And then all of a sudden, he's tilling over here, and he said, well, over here on this side of the house, when we're sitting on the patio, it'd be nice if, since we're going to have the hedges on one side, to have some plants over here on this side too. And then, he disappears for a little while, and then I hear the tiller going out in the front yard. And I'm going, and I'm thinking, what is he doing? So I finished my last hole for my 25 holes that I had to dig, and I went and I found Chuck. Well, I opened the front door, and the whole yard is like tilled up. He not only tilled flower beds on each side of the front door, across the whole front of the house, between the house and the garage, he tilled all along the walk, he tilled the space between the walk and the street. I'm thinking, my gosh, darling, you can plant all this stuff? Oh yeah, I got this, no problem. But I said, well, I finished the holes for the roses. Why don't we go ahead and have a look? Why don't we go ahead and start planting them? Oh, great. So, he brings the 25 rose bushes around, and he meets me at the hole, and he looks at the hole, and there's water in the hole, and it's this far from the top. See, this is Louisiana. The water table is very high. I mean, it's just the way it is. And he goes, oh, this won't do at all. Roses don't like to have their feet wet. I said, well, you going to build the bed? No, I'm not going to build the bed up. What I'll do is I'm going to improve the drainage. Zip, he's off in his truck, and boom, he comes back. He's got a trencher. He's got a trencher, and he's got all this drainage hose. So he tells me to go ahead and start planting the rose bushes. He goes ahead, and I didn't start planting the rose bushes. He gets the trencher out, and he digs this deep trench all the way from the street, from the back of the yard, going forward, all the way to the street. When he got to the sidewalk, he got out a sledgehammer, and he busted through the sidewalk, okay? And I'm going, oh, what are you going to do? What are you doing? Oh, no problem. I'll pour it back. And he gets it, and he goes into the street, and he busts through the curb. Oh, I'll fix that too. And before you know it, my yard is all torn up. I went to work that day, and the next day, and one of the nurses says to me, Kathy, I drove by your house. It looks like a war zone. What happened? And I said, my husband is planting a garden. He's doing landscaping. Well, he not only had to drain the back of the yard, down each side, he had to drain it across the middle. And then, since he had it all torn open and he had the drains, I didn't have enough faucets in the backyard. So, of course, Chuck could do plumbing. He was actually a licensed electrician in addition to being a police officer. He had a little one-man heating and air conditioning business. And but no, he was that's a whole nother story about when he got his license. I'll tell you another time. But anyway, so he went ahead and he laid down electrical cables so we could have accent lightings. He ran copper pipes so we could have faucets everywhere you need them, because he was going to put in a drip sprinkler system, because a drip irrigation is much more efficient when it comes to water. And that way it's going to make this garden absolutely carefree. Well, it took us a few weeks to get all this done. But the plants kept coming. The roses were planted. We planted marigolds at the feet of the roses because they're good companion plants, it turns out. Yeah, they're good companion plants. You see, marigolds, a lot of people think marigolds stink. But roses love marigolds because marigolds drive off the aphids, which will mess up with your roses. So you can't have the aphids and with the roses. So we planted the marigolds. So we had a whole 50-foot hedge of red roses, and we had marigolds, yellow marigolds at their feet. And then he wanted baskets to hang from the fence. So we put about, 15 baskets hanging from the fence, and he had drip irrigation running to all the baskets, and that was on the one side of the yard. And then up close to the patio by the back door, he had a shade garden, because of course he built me a little patio covering that kind of looked like a gazebo. It was white, and he used clear Lexan roofing so that it would feel open, and he had flowers, and we had a swing to sit there, and then there were flowers down this way, and there were grass, pampas grass in the back to block the view of the schoolyard, because it was just a plain woven wire fence back there. We were backing on the elementary school when Michael went to school. And before you know it, he had all this. Well, let me tell you, that backyard was gorgeous. Summer came, and that backyard was absolutely beautiful. That was the first summer we were married, and it was absolutely wonderful. My backyard was beautiful. I couldn't wait to get home and just sit there, or to sit under my gazebo type back patio cover and listen to the rain and see it fall, and deadheading my roses. I used to love to do that, and to be out in the yard. It was just wonderful. I really, really loved it. And we had a beautiful yard. Well, that lasted about 2 years. And then my mom, she had a fall. She lived on a couple of acres in the house where I was raised in Belle Chase, which is just south of New Orleans. And it backs right up against the Mississippi River. And she didn't want to move. She wanted somebody to come in and move in with her. So Chuck and I talked it over, and we decided that what we would do was we would go ahead. No one else in the family at that time wanted to move in with her. And so we decided we would. The house needed to be expanded, but Chuck would work on that a little at a time. And the point is, I'm leaving my house. Well, the house I didn't mind leaving. I really, was getting worried about my mother getting older, and she'd had a fall, and she'd been on the floor for a couple of hours before she managed to get herself up. And I know that frightened her, concerned her, and that's why she wanted us to come live with her, someone to. And she was very happy to have us. So it was Michael and I and Chuck and my mother. That was our new definition of family, right? Well, the only thing that made me sad to leave that house was to leave that yard. I have to admit, we'd put so much into it, and it was so beautiful. So I said, I'm going to take a lot of pictures so that I have great memories of this yard. Well, I took the pictures, and, they didn't come out the way I wanted them to. Because if the roses were looking gorgeous, the marigolds weren't as pretty as I thought they were. The thing about photographs is your mind doesn't gloss them over. They catch what's really there. And if the marigolds and the roses look good, the hanging baskets were kind of droopy, or the flowers on this side or that side, and it just didn't come together in the same way that when I thought of my backyard it did. Well, just about the same time, at the New Orleans Museum of Art, they were having an exhibit of Monet. So I was seeing advertisements for Monet's paintings all over the place, and if you remember, he loved to paint gardens. And, his paintings weren't that complicated. I hope you can see this. You're probably all familiar with what they look like, but I'm showing you on my computer because I didn't have a book that had it. But there you go. I think that's pretty much represents it. They're loose and they're colorful, and they catch the spirit of the garden, even if it doesn't catch all the details. And I thought, that doesn't look so hard, does it? Look at that. That doesn't look that hard. I mean, if I knew how to work with paints, couldn't I put a little paint here and a little paint there, and maybe I could paint a picture that would give me the colors and the beauty of my garden, of my backyard, my beautiful backyard garden. Maybe you would tell me that. I thought, that would be nice. I'd like that. Well, I did go ahead and I started taking art lessons. And I began to paint. I was painting, working with oils, and I surprised myself. I had never thought I had any skill in drawing or art or anything like that. I knew I didn't have any skill, I told myself. I guess I was about 38 years old at the time. And I'd never done any drawing or any painting. But, surprisingly, I was better at it than I thought. And so immediately after I got through the sort of student work we had to do, and the first time we do a project for ourselves, well, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to paint my backyard. I told my instructor I was hoping to get it to look kind of Monet-esque, this real impressionistic, loose, but would give me all the images and color and the basic shape and definition of my backyard. And now that I knew how to use paints, it ought to be easy, right? Not so much. This is what I painted. This, my friends, is my backyard, sitting there under my gazebo-like canopy. Now, does anything about that look particularly Monet-ish? Look like a Monet-ish kind of work? No, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, if you look at it, we have every single leaf, every blade of grass. That's the way I painted. It was like something else other than my head took over when I would paint, and I just wasn't happy unless I tried to put in all this tremendous detail. Well, this tremendous detail left me with kind of that's my backyard. See my 50-foot rose hedge right here? See my pampas grass in the back? Kind of gives you the impression. I didn't bother to try and put in the hanging baskets. It was just too much work. It already wasn't coming out the way I wanted to, with painting every single blade of grass and every single petal. I just couldn't paint anything any way different. It's just the way I am. I tried, and that's funny. But it just goes to show you. It showed me I had talents and gifts I never knew I had. And considering it would be soon after that God would give me my calling to the ministry, it was kind of something that helped reinforce, don't be so skeptical, Kathy. Just because you never did it before doesn't mean you can't. You never painted before, and yet you learned. I actually did much better. Let me show you. All that, I'm sorry, I'm out of the picture. All that detail doesn't work too well for my backyard. But it really helped me. And I can paint still life. And I enjoyed painting still life. And I enjoyed painting all the details. This is one of my other paintings, probably one of my best. I surprised myself. I don't think it matters how old we are or how much we think we know about ourselves. We can still surprise ourselves with the things we can do. Just because we never did it before doesn't mean we won't be able to do it now. Because Scripture tells us in Psalm 139 rather, verse 14, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, crafted in our mother's womb. And we are not like anyone else. We can be inspired by others, but we're not identical to others. And I suspect we each have gifts and talents and abilities that even now we never knew we don't know we have. So I know the future is often an unknown. But that doesn't, but even so, God is with us. And He has equipped us in many ways to deal with the things that life will bring us. We are fearfully and wonderfully made by a God who treasures us and loves us. Until next time, God bless.